There is a new motion software on the market and it's no other than our favorite SimHub. It is something that I always wanted but never believed it will happen. This is like a dream come true for me. I always wanted everything controlled in one software and all the cool gadgets now are here in SimHub, like your belt tensioner, bar shakers, wind simulator, all the displays, even you have a Philips Hue wide support these days. Currently the only other sim software I use is my wheel-based control. And all of this right on time to pair it with the newly released VR support in WRC.
Jump and small jump 50, 5 right, tightens to 3.
This combination is the stuff of legends and man, it really delivers. It led to an unfortunate outcome, but what can you do? First off, let's start with the easy task of configuring the SimHub plugin. I already did it, but it took me about 20 minutes to get it to a point where I like it and left it there. Presumably in this point of time you are already using another motion software, in my case Sim Racing Studio. In this software the actuator order is hard-coded, so you'd want to make a note on which channel of the controller each actuator is connected. This is well documented online, but it doesn't hurt to make a quick note and refresh your memory. While you are still here, it's a good idea to head to the application settings and disable automatic startup in Windows if you have it. After I close SRS, the process is always present, so the Thanos controller is locked. I have to go to Task Manager and kill it manually. This will release in my case the controller COM port so I can connect it to SimHub. Before I continue further, you have to enable the Beta Motion plugin in SimHub. For the time being, it's free and it's included in the latest version. I have already added and configured my Thanos controller here, but I will walk you through the settings. Based on the release notes, you should be able to add multiple controllers here, but I couldn't find an easy way to do it. I will have to read the documentation thoroughly. Also, the SimHub belt tensioner can be added here on this plugin after you update the Arduino controller with the latest code. Didn't record how exactly I did the controller, but it's pretty straightforward. Here is my Thanos controller on COM7 connected to the SimHub plugin. So let's move on to the more important settings of the platform itself and start with the geometry. The plugin already supports most of the common actuator configurations that are on the market and you select them through a drop-down. I have a classic 4-corner 4-post configuration, so this is what I selected. The plugin allows me to set up the distance between front and back as well as left and right actuators. The only other thing left to do is to configure the actuator travel. The plugin also allows you to set up a software limitation. As I have set up on controller level 80 mm of travel, this is how I left it here. You also have a setting to configure your seat offset not only front and back but also left and right. I didn't have time to play with this setting, but I'll definitely look into it. My rig seat is offset to the back from the geometrical center between the actuator configuration, so maybe this will have some effect on the overall feeling. I presume this would be most noticeable when climbing uphill or descending downhill and having elevation gain effects. Next you have motion compensation setup. This is something I left untouched as I don't have it implemented in my setup, as I never felt the need for one. Spike filters I left whatever I had by default. I actually liked how it works, so it stayed there for the time being. And next you have the axis limitation configuration, which again I left by default as I wanted to see how the default configuration plays out. With geometry done, we still have some things to configure on the controller side. This is the place we deal with our axis assignments. From a drop down you select which actuator is connected to which channel of the controller and you have so many options as you can see here. Nothing is preset, so you have the freedom to connect whatever actuator you want to whichever channel apparently. Also you have nice section where you can test all the actuators and see which one is moving when you click the corresponding button. We also have spike filter setting on controller level. I left it by default to see how it goes and this is how it stayed again. The controller configuration I left mostly by default. The only other thing besides axis configuration that I touched was the idle behavior. I'm used to certain behavior on my motion platform from SRS, which is when no telemetry is present, the motion platform is down on the floor. Basically, this is this option. If the game is working and not paused and you have telemetry, only then the motion platform is engaged. And next off is the timeout before you engage this idle state. By default it's 80 seconds, but I put it on 5, which ultimately means after you hit pause or telemetry stops, the motion platform will enter idle state after 5 seconds of inactivity. With this, the controller configuration is complete and we can move on. And now we start the fun part, effects configuration. And I strongly advise you RTFM. The guidelines provided here will help you in the long run and save you a lot of time. It's well explained, it's not so long to read through it. This video by no means is complete guide, it's only me showing how I managed to get a very satisfactory result by spending only 20 minutes of initial configuration. As apparently a lot of RS Mega users were involved in development of this plugin in its alpha and beta state, so I decided to give it a try on its default configuration. I left both acceleration, orientation and haptic gains at 100%, and if ever I feel the need, I will lower them later. As usual with SimHub, it's advisable to dial in every effect separately and then shut it down and move to the next one. This way you will know which effect does what exactly and it will be much easier for you to dial it in properly. Once done separately, enable all the effects you will be using and finish tuning them to work in unison together. First off, I dealt with pitch, which is your elevation gain when going up or downhill. Even with only 80 mm of travel, I felt it very comfortable at about 45%. After it, I dealt with heave, which is the acceleration vertical effect from your suspension. This would be the effect when you hit potholes, curbs and any other obstacles on your road, which will result in vertical travel of the automobile. Found it working for me well at 35% without overpowering the pitch effect, and I didn't even have to touch any of the underlying settings. I'm sticking to the idea of changing as little as possible settings from their default configuration. Next, I continued with the third longitudinal effect, which is surge. This is basically your acceleration or deceleration. Keep in mind these three effects have to work well together as they move your motion platform up, down, front and back. For me at 60% this worked quite well with the current pitch I have set up. My goal was to have a decent surge effect as it is quite fun and also have a very good idea if I'm going downhill or uphill. Once done with the three longitudinal effects I care about, I moved to the perpendicular ones. Started with roll, which is basically how your car is oriented in space sideways. Generally in every game you will have some turns which have camber and your car will be tilted on one side, and this is even double valid for games like WRC. In off-road games you have a lot of off-camber turns, you have slanted roads and always your car is on one side or another. It's not so common to be on a flat ground. 55% felt quite comfortable, provided me with decent roll without my motion rig going into extremes. The last effect I dealt with is sway. This is basically your sideways acceleration effect. This is particularly well pronounced in WRC when you hit sideways a rock, curb, tree or something else, which gives you a big jolt sideways, so I dialed it a little down. Also, this would be your sideways acceleration where turning your car left or right. You need to pay extra attention here, achieving good balance between sway and roll to be able to tell what is acceleration effect and what is the roll position of your car. As I have quite extensive butt shaker setup, I didn't bother with any of the haptic effects here. From my experience, I know the RS Mega Plus is very capable for haptics. I just don't need them as I have another system for it. The only thing I tried is the gear change effect, that is quite fun, but I didn't notice anything. I didn't dig deeper or read anything, but my presumption is this is mapped to a search axis which I don't have currently, so I just stopped it and moved on with other more important things, which amounted to me not touching anything else with the default configuration and moving on to some gaming. Worthy mention here is if you are a VR user to configure a comfortable reset button, as you will need it a lot with the motion system in place. The only thing left to do is to enable the motion and fire up my game.
EA Sports, it's in the game.
So now the game is unpaused, we have telemetry and the RS Mega assumes its attack position. Immediately follows a pitch adjust. Apparently we are starting uphill. With only 80mm of travel setup on my system currently, it doesn't look a lot, but it actually feels like it. And while we wait in anticipation, let's ponder how the surge effect will kick in.
30 crest 6.
Looking through this footage, it's a good example of how the acceleration effects work together with the pitch changing elevation. I want to point out how the surge effect works in conjunction with the belt tensioner, them being powered by the same software. Bear in mind I'm still using the legacy plugin for the belt tensioner as I haven't upgraded it yet. So now it would be an opportune moment to guide you through why I did the configuration in such a way. As I may have mentioned quite a lot, I have quite an extensive bass shaker setup which takes care of all the haptics I need. Always my idea was the motion platform to take care of the big position effects and then put on top of them some acceleration without overpowering them. Never needed haptics coming from motion as they introduce too much vibrations throughout my rig, and I have this extensive shaker setup which takes care of them. SimHub, being what it is and following its philosophy, gives me all the effects separately, so I have granular control, and this is quite welcome. I was able to achieve something like this with SRS before, but it required much more effort and input on my side, and I was never satisfied with the outcome I got. So finally I can frankly say I managed to achieve all the big motion and acceleration I was always after, and at the same time be able to feel properly the extensive haptic feedback I'm used to from my shaker setup. Having all these systems controlled from SimHub, they work very well together in unison. All the effects come in the same time from the motion, belt tensioner and bass shakers, so it really feels like one system. Added bonus is you have to connect only one software to your game telemetry and it will control everything for you. I know it doesn't look so epic on the video, especially with the short travel I use, but it's actually very fast and brutal. With the static monitor setup, even the pitch effect feels quite big when going up or downhill. With all the brutal motion happening around, it led to some unfortunate events. My seat rails started spitting, bearing balls like crazy, and I lost almost all of them. This led to a quite unpleasant rattle in the rails, but what can you do? With this out of the way, let's take a look at how the whole setup sounds. Here I have everything turned on and the game sound comes from my Razer's soundbar. I will give you 20 seconds to marvel in the magnificence of this system. After it I will provide a recap of what you heard. If you want to know what it is, you have to be patient.
3 left, don't cut. 30, 5 right, into 3 left, don't cut. Moving 2 right, 3 left short, 80. Over bridge, to 3 left short, 5 right short, 30.
So the worst part is definitely the belt tensioner. Keep in mind the phone microphone has tendency to exaggerate and it actually is much quieter than that. Next in line is my SG Racing Pro sequential shifter, but it's not that noisy that it cannot be used at night. The rest is almost inaudible with the game sound on. When crashing or rapidly changing direction, you can hear the occasional belts hitting the seat or the seat rails doing their thing. In this section I will switch to my headphones, so at least I know where I should go. We will shut off the noisy subsystems and let you hear the RS Mega in action itself. We will switch to using my push-pull shifter and also will turn off the belt tensioner. WinSim and bass shaker remain operational. Neighbor friendly mode engaged. Pretty strange to have a silent start, no? And now I will take you to my favorite place to visit often in real life, Croatia. The stages there have unique features which are quite suitable for what I intend to show you in this footage. They are mainly tarmac stages which feature a lot of sharp bends, water drains, curbs, roadside rocks, rails, basically a lot of obstacles you can hit and make your motion platform move in very extreme ways. I will tell you what you have to listen to, so you don't have to wait till the end of this section. Mostly you will hear the metal belt loops clanking on the seat and also the seat rails being past their half-life. Creaking and squeaking in the rig itself are down to minimum as I put extra bracing on the lower frame. WinSim is quite audible and also on occasions some of the rumbles mainly on my pedals. And now I will leave you to enjoy the sound of silence, which is a little noisy. In this last part you heard some tactile switches and my video card fans. So let's step in VR mode now. Immediately you can notice when the motion system goes up in active state, my perfectly centered VR view goes up as well. Remember the VR Z button I told you about? Here I have overlaid the VR footage audio with the phone recording together. The VR footage is jerky mainly because of all the motion happening all around. The audio you just heard was coming from the Quest 3 built-in speakers. Pretty impressive.
3, 2, 1, go. Slight left, 60, small crest.
As I said before, I am not using any motion compensation whatsoever. I never felt the need to, and I don't need it even now. My immediate impression when starting VR is that the brutality of the motion platform that I had before is miraculously gone. Now that I don't have the static monitors in front of me to judge how much I'm moving, I cannot compare and really know what exactly is my body position in space. On the other hand, with the VR on my eyes, it feels so real and so smooth, it's unbelievable. Except this awful vignette effect when my back tires entered the ditch and the game thought I crashed. I barely could see anything. Here on the small screen you can notice the unfortunate position of the display unit. When stopping or going downhill, my body moves forward, my head moves up, and of course in VR mode it does the same, so I can barely see the display. This minor inconvenience that I cannot see which gear I am in actually feels pretty real, and when my body moves and my VR position moves, I actually am convinced I am in a real car. The combination between VR and the motion platform, how it's set up, it's uncanny. I can swear I'm in a real car and it feels extremely convincing. It works so well that when my back tires hit a curb or drain or ditch or whatever, I can almost feel that like I have traction loss. This said, the effect is minor, so the movement and displacement is not actually that big, of course. I will open a short bracket here and talk about the times when I had a next level racing V3 seat mover thrown in the mix. As my seat was positioned behind the geometrical center of the seat mover, this effect of traction loss that I'm talking about, it was very well pronounced with seat mover. But this combination between RS Mega and the seat mover had other issues, so I solved it eventually and moved to pure RS Mega setup. And this leads me to my next revelation. Immediately when I tested this combination, I realized I really need Surge plus traction loss platform. Don't get me wrong, this currently that I have is very convincing, very real, very smooth, and I like it a lot. I just know from the seat mover how traction loss would feel, so this is definitely something I will look into adding anytime soon. The seat mover I used to some extent to add Surge as well, so I know what it would feel if I had those two in the mix. So there you have it, one software to rule them all. All my toys that make sim racing cool controlled in a single software. Motion, belt tensioner, wind simulator, shakers and pedal rumbers and haptic reactors all working together as one single system. The only thing I'm missing here is a phone app to control all of it from my tablet or phone. I'm quite lucky to be an RS Mega Plus owner, as apparently a lot of such people were participating in the development of the Motion plugin. It's still in beta phase and it's free for the time being, so give it a try. This will change definitely, but I'm amazed how well it performs. For a mere 20 minutes I managed to set up everything up and get this complete and satisfying experience. Especially in VR it has very good flow and feels exactly like a real car. I didn't expect such completeness from software in beta state, but there you have it. But all this awesomeness still left me wanting. Now I need a full traction loss and surge system put in the mix. Now I feel I have to press up and finish my traction loss and surge projects which I already developed. But this feels so good that I think I'll put everything aside and spend some months only playing as is. And did I mention how good this jump sequence feels? Watch closely now.
Big jump, 40, jump, and small jump, 50, 5 right, tightens, to 3 left of the crest. And small crest.